I'm going to leave you with a quote from Jean-Francois Decaux, and I'll read it. He says, "We are a force for good. We're not a fraud. We're not a scam. We're not for addiction, but we need to make ourselves heard." And I think that's really our job globally and in South Africa. We are force for good, but we need to tell people about it, and we actually need to just get our house in order.
Welcome to the Beyond the Billboard podcast. If you haven't yet, please do support us by subscribing. Today's a very important episode where we will be talking about the key takeouts from the World Out of Home Organization conference in London. The conference was 2 days jam-packed, filled with presentations, panels, and breakout sessions, all about expanding the world of out of home. The conference covered topics such as the important role of out-of-home associations, out-of-home sustainability, audience measurement, out-of-home creativity, and so much more, including a very, very well and a common and popular spoken about topic post the conference, which is the impact of AI on out-of-home. Today, we have two very esteemed guests joining us back on the Beyond the Billboard podcast. We're very grateful and honored to have Tom Goddard, the president of the World Out of Home Organization and the chairman of Out of Home Capital, and Jacques, the World Out of Home Africa ambassador and the CEO of Provantage, both joining us on the podcast today to talk about the recent World Out of Home conference in London and the out of home focus areas for the year ahead. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Jacques, for joining us again.
Big pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's nice to be here, and greetings from the sunny Northern Hemisphere where it's really balmy today in London.
Thank you both. And we're so excited to get in today's conversation. And to kick us into the conversation, I would just like to say my LinkedIn has been covered with post-conference content. All the highlights, people posting photos, key takeouts. It's been amazing to see. And I've been quite jealous because I was not at the World Out of Home conference in London. I wish I was, but I was actually off getting married. So I was unavailable to attend the World Out of Home conference. But it really looked like it just punched a pack of information, and just people left there just feeling so inspired and just so much more informed with so much information and insights. And so I would like to kick into this episode by starting with the first question around, what was your highlights coming out of the recent World Out of Home Organization conference? I think a big one for me was seeing that it hit the record number of delegates and attendees, which I think is just a phenomenal show of how big and amazing the out of home industry is across the globe. But I would like to ask this question to both of you. What were the highlights that you felt coming out of the recent conference? And I'd like to start with you, Tom, and then if the same question can please be asked to you, Jacques, afterwards.
Yeah, there are so many, but I'll give you two or three. You mentioned the record attendance, 807 delegates from 55 countries, and this is at a particularly difficult time for air travel because of all of the problems in the Middle East, but also a very expensive time. So we took that as a really strong endorsement of what we're doing at WOO, that so many people came. It was an absolute record. The second thing was the sheer overall quality of the speakers and panelists. It was they took us to a new level. The preparation and the forethought they gave in their presentations was outstanding. And then the third point was the sort of sense in the air of optimism. It was tangible. And I think throughout the 3 days, I think it was based on the realization that out of home is entering a new period of above average growth. We really feel we're at an inflection point. And you could really feel the excitement. I haven't been at a conference in a long time that had that level of excitement. So those are the three things that really, in retrospect, appeal to me.
It's so great to hear when the out-of-home community and fraternity and industry comes together that there's this positive, upbeat, excited energy about the medium. Because I feel like when everybody comes together with that common energy and focus and that common vision, that's how things shift as an industry around the globe. So, and I think having that record number just proves that, you know, there is this positive energy. Everybody's wanting to work together to improve, you know, the medium. And now, Jacques, I'd love to ask you, what is your key highlights and takeouts? I mean, it's been all over our LinkedIn from all the suppliers that were able to go because it was for us, a more central location being London. I think there was a lot more South African media owners that were there. And I'd love to hear, you know, if you also picked that up and saw a lot of fellow industry colleagues and individuals there. And also, what was your key highlights coming out of it?
Yeah, I think I have to share with Tom in terms of just the scale of the Congress this year was just phenomenal. Um, and the positive sentiment out of home growing by 15% last year, which is unheard of. It's fantastic to be part of the industry. And it's actually so exciting to be part of out of home at this stage. I mean, there's probably more development now in the last 10 years than it's been in the last 100 years before. So it is changing so fast. For me, that was like a big topic or big realization is ad tech, audience measurement, regulation, the creative side of out of home. It's just changing so fast and quickly. And then obviously the landscape around us with omni-channel and everything else, and how do we fit into that? So that was for me a big just reawakening of, hey, we're in flux and there's so much to absorb and to actually take home. But on the other side, I think, as Tom said, it's exciting. We're growing. We're one of the last growth mediums left. So it's a nice place to be. Thank God we're not in print. So yeah, it's exciting. And then obviously the global representation, people from all over the world, Japanese, I mean, Latam, fantastic just to network with our peers from all over the world.
Yeah.
The association meetings that we had, just sharing and realizing that we have common issues, you know, so from America to Brazil to India to South Africa, a lot of the issues are common. So I think that was just fantastic to be exposed to that. Obviously, it's our largest South African delegation ever, which was phenomenal to see some of our colleagues from here, you know, and it's also important that they just understand what's happening in the rest of the world and that we need to get our act together here fast. And if we do, that growth is possible and we can actually do really well. So those were key highlights. And yeah, some of the speakers, which we'll get to later, which is just inspirational.
Jacques, thank you so much for sharing that. I think you touched on something that I also wanted to add is that I certainly felt very proud to see how many South Africans were attending the conference. I think it shows the importance in the industry. There's so much hunger for knowledge and will to collaborate that I think the South African industry is great for that. I think something else you also touched on, which is always kind of catches me by surprise when you're in these international circles. I'm not sure why there's this feeling of South Africa can be behind, or we're not up with the latest trends of some of the other more advanced markets or the more mature markets. And I think there is a percentage of that around, but I think mostly when I've been in those international circles, you actually realize how advanced South Africa is, how quick we are to adapt to change, and how willing we are to collaborate, take actions to drive things forward. And we are not, a country that's left behind or dragging behind the rest of the industry. So I love that you've called that out. I think you've also touched on it. There's some real work that needs to be done to move the industry forward. And that needs to happen with a global lens as well as a local lens. And it leads me to the question that I wanted to ask to you, Tom, is that you sit in a central position that you kind of have line of sight across all the markets. You touch base with all the ambassadors to understand what are the pressures in each of the markets, but then you can see it from a central perspective. And I wanted to ask you, from a global point of view, what do you think are the biggest focus areas that we should be looking at from an out-of-home perspective in order to move the needle forward in terms of spend, in terms of driving the industry forward, longevity, all of those things? I would love to get your view on those global trends.
Great question. And as Jacques said, a lot of the challenges that we're facing globally, you share in South Africa. And I just like to say that, you didn't only have a great delegation of South Africans coming to attend, but you had two of your colleagues on stage in panels contributing very, very, very intelligently and very eloquently, and just the general camaraderie from your team was just outstanding. I think since we were in Cape Town, there's been a lot of work done to reorganize the industry down there and to look at how to better structure associations and collaboration. And I really think that if you get that right, your uptick in terms of share of addicts will just accelerate. And I know Jacques and Simon and Bongo Musa, a lot of your colleagues down there are walking in step on that particular tune, and I think that's the biggest thing that needs to happen in South Africa: collaboration to get that momentum. Because, as I always say, we have to invest in our own companies, but we also have to invest in the industry.
Something that you touched on now and at the conference was around speaking about, the USPs of out of home, the strength of out of home as a channel, as a medium. As you mentioned, like the marketing of the out of home channel is so critical. And I think that, locally we're doing our part, Kirsty and I last year, as well as with a whole lot of collaborating partners, brought together the OG influencer campaign, which was very successful in marketing out of home as a channel. This was also mentioned and recognized on the Woo stage, which was a very proud moment for us. But that campaign was all about bringing competing media owners together to see, as a collective, when we collaborate, what can we achieve as an industry to say, let's move the medium forward. It's not about the individual media owners that are all competing for the space and for the spend. It's more about collaborating to bring the industry forward. And there are other initiatives in our market that are also planned or trying to achieve the same thing. So I think that you are correct that the collaboration piece is really, really important. Tom, you touched on Cape Town, and I wanted to just ask, because I'm sure our listeners are asking themselves the same question. Are there plans to do something similar to the African Forum that was done in Cape Town recently? Would we see something like that coming to our market again?
Yeah, I had a chat with Jacques about this, and we think the time is coming for us to come back if we're invited. And I think there's some foundational work to be done still in terms of this whole issue of collaboration. I always say that collaboration is best done at industry level with national associations, and I think I think that's an area where really you need to get that clarified and everybody pointed in the same direction. And I think that's fairly near, and we're ready. We wouldn't need a second invitation to come back down to maybe Johannesburg this time and update you on the amazing things that are happening globally, but also for you to update us on the progress you've made since Cape Town. But I have to say, the progress has been immense, and the collaboration and communication now. And I have to give Jacques great credit here, but he really has made an impact on our board. And we just feel now that South Africa is a fully fledged member of the family.
Yeah, we are so excited to hear this, and also, so proud of Jacques' representation of the African continent from a Woo perspective. I think he's a fantastic ambassador, and like you say, driving those relationships in the industry, the collaboration. We have no doubt that Jacques is doing an amazing job in having those conversations, and yeah, we really look forward to having Woo in Johannesburg.
Keep us accountable. As Tom said, we're doing a lot of work. We have been doing a lot of work for the last 2 years, but we have to get some stuff sorted. But I think the industry is also right now. I think people are realizing it's time. For me, things are just happening too slowly. I think we need to move faster. That's the message we got across to all the South African colleagues that were at Woo. But also from the AMC perspective, we got a lot of work to do. So we are actively working behind the scenes. I think a big compliment to Tom and the Woo board and the Woo team and the subcommittees is, I think a big realization that Bongo Musa actually shared with me at the conference. He said to me, we don't have to figure all of this out ourselves. There's so many cultures around the world that have done this. We can actually lean on them. And I said, that was my message all along, is the the gracious help and assistance that people have offered us from Australia to Canada to the UK to the US with Anna Bagger, it's phenomenal. So it's really just getting our house in order, copying and pasting and leaning on some of our colleagues internationally and actually rolling out and doing what we're supposed to be doing as an industry. And the size of Preez is phenomenal. It's enormous if we can just get it right, and we will get it right.
I think it's amazing that you've got this community that you can take the learnings from. And as you were saying, we're not the only market that's navigating what we're navigating in our market. You know, there's learnings from other markets, having that connection, having that community through your seat on obviously World Out of Home as the Africa ambassador, Jacques. I think you come back with so much more information to share with the industry. And I also think that's why like an Africa forum or a South Africa forum is so great to kind of focus on the lens, specifically locally or regionally. But what I would like to ask you, and I think this is exactly what we're speaking about now, but to get a bit more into the detail is, Jacques, what would you say from a local lens point of view, looking at all the key topics and conversations? I know you mentioned now there were some amazing speakers that just were so inspirational. And I wanted to ask you, what from a local lens point of view have you taken back to say is areas that you need to either optimize, elevate, course correct, or fix as the key focus areas for us for the year or the recent years to come to really move the needle for us? As Liv touched on, you know, we want to be focused on, you know, growing the spend and getting the spend and attracting spend from which is currently with other mediums, not just moving the spend amongst media owners at the moment in our market. So, you know, you've got that clear picture of where do we need to focus as a market to kind of course correct and elevate to move that needle.
I think that the key type of focus areas haven't changed. I think it's just been accentuated again and just focused on that. These are critical areas for us to grow that we have to sort out. The first one is audience measurement. So we've got a lot of work to do with AMC. Our data is static. We don't have live programmatic data. We're only measuring roadside billboards with AMC. There's issues around our digital roadside research that we urgently need to address. And then obviously the other environments, airports, malls, transit nodes. So we urgently, and we are busy. I've gone back onto the AMC board. So has Lumba from JC&Co, who's joined me, which is fantastic. He's back on the board. So we have to get our audience measurement in line with global best practices, programmatically enabled. So that's the first set. Without currency and measurement, we will not grow and we will not attract more spend. The second element that's linked to this is getting our association sorted out. We have to be united. We have to be well funded. We have to have a professional leadership team that's got integrity, that represents our industry, that intimately understands our issues, and that actively works to actually, you know, further and grow our share in terms of spend. So the association, the research piece, they linked. And that's obviously linked to a big issue that we've seen, regulation, engagement with government, standardizing policy across the different spheres of government, aligning policy, and also having a stronger voice for out of home, and actually from a client perspective, agency perspective, but also a government perspective, just reminding everybody that we are the most sustainable media type out there. There are investments we do back into society, into local government, the amount of jobs that we create, the eco-friendly nature of our media type. So I think all of those things are critically important, but it boils down to getting ourselves organized in a well-funded, well-led organization from an industry perspective and getting our research piece sorted out. And then obviously after that, big topic in South Africa, again, it's a global topic. How do we actually make it a lot easier to buy out of home? So how do we get rid of a lot of the friction on the buyer side? 320 different media owners, a lot of it's paper-based still. And we're competing with competitors that are digitally enabled. The resource side on the media agencies are getting thinner and thinner globally. So we have to get our act together when it comes to automation of buying, making it easier. So those are the key topics. They haven't changed, but it's just spotlighting them again. And what's nice now, big South African delegation, there's more of us that actually are getting the brief and understanding what needs to be done.
Jacques, I love how you unpacked the big themes and how, it's nothing really new. These are common themes that have been coming up, but it's about how do we actually tackle these themes and put them into action, and not just about discussing we should be doing this, actually doing it. I like how you started with some of the local fixes and then the AI automation, the buying, making that process easier. They are two separate pieces, but very critical. And I think that I like how you separated them, that it's almost like getting our house in order and then looking at how do we buy easier. But before the house is in order, we can't actually do the second piece.
Provantage, digital innovators at scale. With a national network of over 4,000 screens, we reach more than 50 million people on the move in the most high-value environments across South Africa. Flexible, impactful, contextually relevant. Our real-time audience measurement ensures precise targeting and transparent results. As we build a programmatically enabled digital network, we're shaping a more connected future for brands. Provantage, redefining out of home.
Something you touched on around legality, compliance, governance. We're seeing in the local market, specifically in Johannesburg, Gauteng, the municipalities and the councils have been removing illegal sites. And we've seen this happening over the past few months. And wanted to just get your opinion on what's been happening in the market. From my perspective, it's created quite a shake-up in the industry. I think there are clients that are nervous to invest in out-of-home because of this legality of the sites. Clients aren't sure if the site will be removed overnight and if they'll receive bad publicity for being on a site. The media owners that have got sites approved, the media owners that don't have sites approved. So it feels like an inevitable and important step and process that the industry is going through at the moment. But from your experience and position, I'd love to get your take on what you're seeing in the market at the moment.
So we've picked up, obviously, from a lot of our agency partners, clients, that there's a nervousness about what's happened in terms of the illegality. From our perspective, it's very simple. We think it's fantastic. We think it's way overdue that governments actually, especially Johannesburg, start doing what they're supposed to be doing and enforcing the bylaws. We've seen 1,000 new billboards being built in the last 4 years in Johannesburg. Most of them are illegal. Yeah. I mean, it's a race to the bottom in terms of price. I'm not even talking about reputational damage to brands, urban pollution, backlash from communities and society. What can you expect? So from our perspective, it's very positive. I think that's where we need a very strong industry body to actually address these issues, to engage formally with these municipalities, and to spread the gospel that illegality is not tolerated, not by us, and it shouldn't be tolerated by clients or government. So for us, I think it's fantastic. It most certainly will bring a debate back to the table that makes sure that the boards that you buy are from reputable media owners that do the right things and follow the laws of the country. And I think for us, that's the message. So, and I think that's the message right across the world. It's no different in any other dispensation or area or country. So we're all for it. We'll see how long that enforcement process carries on. We hope it carries on and stays there. And I think what we also want to do as part of the industry, if we have a well-funded body, is to help government with clean enforcement, funding initiatives to make sure that our medium is valued and sustainably responsible. So that's our view. We're also engaging with some of the municipalities to have a list, to have a live database of legal sites with approval numbers on there. That if you want to buy a board, you can go on there. It's a central portal, and you can actually see if the site has got a permit or not. And I think we're moving towards that quite quickly. And this is driven with what's happening with the cleanup in Joburg.
If I can inject an element of hope and enthusiasm to this subject, one of the things that we've done this year is we've created 4 global lead positions, and one of those is in regulation, which is headed up by Kai Marcus Tassler, who's the CEO of the German Outdoor Advertising Association, and these are the areas that we're helping our members to tackle. But in the marketers and the brands have a role to play here, because they need to support the ethical operators. They have the ultimate sanction here if they just want to. It's no good just complaining about the industry's regulation, you also have to be sensitive to, the ethical operators in the market and support them, because at the end of the day, the cream always flows to the top. And I've seen this in so many markets where they went through this period of regularizing the bylaws and so forth. And it's amazing how quickly you can get through it if you have willing participants from the city and from the brands.
I think that's such a critical
implementing.
point, is that it's about like all the parties coming together with that common goal to actually move, if the people that are holding the spend are also exactly like you were saying now, Tom, obviously working with those ethical operators. And we had the National Association that is credible and obviously can lead the industry, and all parties from a media owner, agency, client, everybody working together and with the city where needed from a National Association point of view. That's where we're actually going to hit that sweet spot. And I think that's where we will see a massive difference. And I know the work that you've been doing on this in the background for some time now, Jacques, and hopefully we can start seeing that come to fruition, to come soon.
I wanted to change gears and speak about AI. I think we've all embraced AI in our personal lives to various different levels, and a lot of businesses have also incorporated AI in their ways of working. It's become a common part of our lives. Tom, I wanted to ask you, from an AI perspective in relation to out of home, how are you seeing AI being used, the plans for out of home around how AI can help to benefit and streamline a lot of the work processes? Jacques touched on earlier that a lot of the work is still like pen to paper, manual. All we know this about our market currently, and I think that kind of standardizing the measurement is a big piece to unlocking some of the automation that can come. But I'd love to get a lens on how you're seeing AI being used in other markets successfully, or what you think might be coming with AI down the road for the out-of-home channels specifically.
Yeah, I mean, it's a key question. It's the hot topic, isn't it, at the moment? AI, it's never out of the news, is never out of the conference agendas. And I think for out of home, there are two areas that we have to look at. Firstly is the deployment of AI in terms of improving efficiencies, improving the service, and using AI to maximum advantage. And in our conference, we actually dedicated a workshop session, especially to AI, which was moderated by Stephen Joseph, who is the CEO of Ocean Outdoor. And we had 4 excellent panelists representing each areas of the food chain, giving examples of how they were deploying AI. I was absolutely delighted with the workshop session, because things were more advanced than I expected to be in the individual companies, and you'll see that because all of the videos will be out in the next few days of all the presentations, including the workshops. And so I won't go into that, but what I would say is we really are up to speed in terms of how to use AI to improve efficiencies. The big second area is agentic buying, and how AI is going to change the ad tech processes. And that is a huge subject, and it's coming very, very fast. And I think there's no doubt about it. We are moving towards a period where there will be more and more fully automated buying end to end. And I think that's full of opportunity if we can get our ad tech connectivity better. We're doing so well at the moment with our programmatic ad tech and our automation, but still the largest part of our trading is not programmatic. It's a normal trading. And whilst a lot of investment has gone into ad tech around the world, it just isn't joined up enough. We need to get ready. Audience measurement that you just said it has to be there to allow for automated buying, particularly if you're buying impressions. So I think it's very exciting what's coming down the road in terms of agentic buying to get us into that bigger pool of advertisers. But there are some people who believe that that there will still be a need for human involvement in the buying process for a lot of brands and a lot of advertisers. So those are the two big areas for us, the efficiencies, which we're really getting on with, but figuring out how to get our ad tech aligned to what's coming down the road now in terms of agentic buying processes.
There's been a lot of conversation online about the AI piece coming out of the World Out of Home conference, and a lot of people spoke about the workshop. I'd like to also ask Jacques, what can you want to build on this AI piece? It is the hot topic, everybody's talking about it. But I just wanted to ask, what's your build on that from a regional and a local lens, and having come out of the conference? Was that also a big moment for you being in that workshop?
Yeah, I think, actually I had a big AI meeting in our business today with a lot of departments because it's affecting us, and it's something that we need to kind of like almost adopt, obviously, in our businesses. It's already in our personal lives, but there's a lot of elements involved, and it's like a jungle. I think where we're sitting in South Africa, we have to get our policy right. We have to get the tools, kits right for each user in our businesses. It's most certainly transforming the way we do business and the way we manage our businesses and operate. And it's like that 10x factor. How do we 10x our management teams? I mean, and if you're not enabled, you're competing with somebody that is AI enabled.
Yeah.
I think from an industry perspective in South Africa, again, I think that will come later because we don't have the big ingredients to bake our cake sorted out yet. Audience measurement, legality, all those things. So I think for us, we are lagging behind a lot of the markets. But I think what will happen is what normally happens in Africa is we will leap technology. So we'll probably leap some of the cycles that some of the other markets have gone through. And I think, the adoption will be fast once we get our ingredients right and we organize. So it has to be on your radar. If you're not AI enabled, you are falling behind fast.
I love the analogy you made about some of the big ingredients for the cake are missing. I think that heading towards our close, it's a great way to frame that. Yes, there are these things happening around us that we know we're going to be touching on. And as you mentioned, the AI piece, figuring it out. But it is about grounding it and focusing on, what ingredients are we missing or lacking, and how do we bring those together properly to actually have a solid foundation. Just as our closing question, I would love to ask you, Tom, where do we see the next big global WOO conference happening next year?
Yes, we're taking the roadshow to our World Congress. We do 3 congresses a year now, and we do an autumn congress, which this year is in Warsaw in Poland. It's going to be a Central and Eastern European regional forum, and we're really excited about that. Poland is really developing as a market. It's over-indexing and some great stuff coming out of that. And I hasten to add that it's always a two-way thing for us. It's not just a question of going down to Cape Town and showing the locals what to do. We come back with lots of ideas every time. It's a two-way process. So we're really looking forward to Poland. And then in the spring, we're going to Sydney for an Australian and New Zealand regional forum. And we're going down there to get up to date in terms of what's happening in the region, but also to pay tribute to the Australian industry, which outpunches its weight in terms of excellence and leading the way on things like audience measurement and data and automation. And we're overdue a visit down there. So we're looking forward to that. And then we're taking the World Congress to Singapore next June, first week in June, as always the case. And we're going to be going down there to shine the light on what is the fastest growing of the 3 big regions, APAC. It grew at nearly 30% last year, and they're doing some amazing stuff down there. So we thought it would be time to go back there and see how they're getting on.
Yeah, thanks for laying that out for us. And I think it's an exciting time. Anybody who needs to start planning for next year, June, knows that Singapore will be the destination. And yeah, I really just wanted to thank both of you for joining us today. It's been an absolute honor to have you both back on the podcast with us to share about the exciting WOO conference. Jacques, I love how you gave us the local lens. Tom, from your perspective, adding that support from a global perspective, it really feels like we have a clear map of what needs needs to be done. It's now about getting stuck into the detail of actually making these changes to move our market forward. So thank you both so much for joining us today.
Just a final comment, which is, I think knowing what needs to be done is half of the problem solved, and it's very clear to Jacques' leadership and the leadership team that's very clear what needs to be done. I think now we just need the willpower collectively to move it forward, and we look forward to coming down and celebrating that as soon as possible.
Just from my side, guys, thank you for the opportunity. And maybe just, I do encourage everybody that watches this podcast, go and get the presentations of some of the speakers. And it's fantastic to just be exposed to it. And I'm going to leave you with a quote from Jean-Francois Decaux, and I'll read it. He says, "We are a force for good. We're not a fraud. We're not a scam. We're not for addiction, but we need to make ourselves heard." And I think that's really our job globally and in South Africa. We are a force for good. But we need to tell people about it, and we actually need to just get our house in order. And I think and the power of the medium speaks for itself. So thanks, guys, for the opportunity.
Jean-Francois' speech was really passionate, and it was a great call to the leadership to seize this moment of opportunity. And it's going to be on our, you can see it live on our Friday newsletter. So you'll hear that quote live from Jean-Francois, who delivered a fantastic presentation.
Thank you to the sponsor of today's episode. Your support helps make Beyond the Billboard possible and helps us to bring you the first and only out-of-home podcast in South Africa.
Thanks for joining us today to go beyond the billboard. Subscribe to our podcast to ensure you don't miss out on our exciting content.
Join us again to go beyond the billboard.
1, 2